Welcome everyone to Dragon Quest FM, where we talk about and obsess over Dragon Quest. I'm Austin,
I'm BJ.
and this week we are talking about DQ3 a little bit more. Gonna go ahead and preemptively say spoiler warning here.
Right.
We're at the point where I want to talk about the silver orb a little bit. Didn't get around
Yep.
to talking
Yep.
about that one last week, and the what you think is the final boss and things like that. So there are
Right.
going to be spoilers. Also, heads up to anybody listening. BJ has a dude blowing leaves right outside his window.
Yep. It's right over there. To the
So
if you're on the video, you can see me pointing to my left.
yeah, so
Uh
so sometimes the audio gets a little wonky, um, wonky.
Wernke.
Um, so yeah, it gets wonky.
Actually, I think I was
So
pointing to my right because of the way that the video mirrors. So I'm not crazy. I do know my left from right. But on the video, I'm looking and I'm like pointing, and it's my right hand that's doing that.
you're
But
pointing right on to me,
yep.
at least.
So I'm
Yeah,
not. This is my
that's how it
left hand.
works.
This is my left hand. Now everybody's like, woo. But yeah, so sorry about the audio on that. This is the only time we could really get it going and had it scheduled. So, uh,
Yeah. Um, so anyway, let's chat a little
so
bit.
so the silver orb. So I
Silver
haven't
orb.
actually heard you talk too much about the any kind of issues that you've had with this one, like you did with like you said the other day with the blue orb and the green orb and stuff.
Yeah, well, okay. So I've kind of alluded to it, and I think I've mentioned it a little bit briefly in previous episodes, but essentially, to get the silver orb, you have to go through the Cave of Necrogon,
Okay.
which is that and the pyramid are like my two least favorite things in DQ3. Like anytime
Yeah.
I make it to the pyramid or like Cave of Necrogon, it's kind of just like, yep, gotta chug through this part of it.
Mhm.
And so anyway, you have to go through the whole Cave of Necrogon to get the silver orb, which is frustrating. But I'm used to it. It was a little bit more frustrating for me this time around because I was trying to collect all the mini medals and monster companions
Mhm.
at this point. So it was like I would get on a floor and it would be like, there's a monster waiting to be recruited nearby. And it's like, crap, I
Yeah.
can't just go doot 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 and then get to the like exit.
Uh
It's
huh.
like I have to explore every path that I know is a dead end. And like even if you're playing this for the first time and you pull up the map, you can see that it's a dead end, but I
Oh
was
yeah.
still having to go like through those. And the bosses, the or not bosses, but like the encounters, the monster encounters, the encounter rate's high, the monsters are tough, some of them at least, and it's just like it was a real pain in the butt. Where eventually it was like I talked about how I ran from battle
Yeah.
almost as much as I fought, and I'm pretty sure most of that skew happened when I was in the Cave of Necrogon, where I just
Oh.
because I got tired of it after a while, and I was like, I just want to find a monster, like,
Right.
and make him my friend.
Like and not have to deal with all of this just repetitive and frustrating
hmm
gameplay.
Yeah, and so I started running eventually, and then it would be nice anytime I would get to a part of the map
Mhm.
and there wouldn't be monsters available. I'd
Yeah.
just be like, hot dog, to borrow your phrase,
Hot
and
dog.
just like, barrel on out of there. And so that made it harder because like when I've replayed DQ3 in the past,
Yeah.
it's just like I'm just gonna get through it and get out of here. Like I'm not gonna worry about going down here and picking up that. And it's like
Yep.
I'm not gonna try to open these five treasure chests because three of the five are mimics and that kind of stuff. Like I'm not gonna be
Yeah.
doing that. And so like it was a little bit more frustrating, I think, on in three remake. And then to make matters worse, whenever you're doing like the final dungeon sequence of the game, like in post game,
Hmm.
it takes you through a lot of the maps you've already visited. It's just like a loop.
Hmm.
And one of them is Cave of Necrogon, but in reverse. And I was
Oh,
just like, I know that was my reaction. I was just kind of like, oh, come on.
and that
Like,
is the situation in games where it is, I'm going to take a break right now. Like I see that and it's like, yep, I don't, want to play this today, and I'll come back in a day or two. Where that is exactly the kind of place that I'll do that.
Yeah, I didn't do that quite. My reaction was I'm going to get through this and then I'm going to save it as soon as I get on the other side of it because I don't
Right.
want to. To me, it was like a Band-Aid, rip off the Band-Aid situation
Oh yeah.
where it's like I got there and I was like, well, this is an unpleasant surprise. and then, and then it was kind of like, well, if I just go ahead and get through it, then
Yeah.
when I come back to the game, I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of made myself get through it. And then when I was through it again, I was like, I've earned a break now. And I went and, didn't play it again until the next day.
Yeah, so you did future Austin a favor, which is something that past BJ rarely does, or present BJ, I guess, rarely does for future BJ. That's awesome that you did that for yourself. Like I can't, I'm not that strong. I just look at it and like, nope,
And
absolutely not.
and I think part of it too is that when I was at that point in the game originally, like original
Hmm.
Cave of Necrogon going to get the silver orb, it was late at night. It was one of those things where I I don't know if it was like a memory thing or what. I think it might be like, how I've always heard, and my wife has said this too, that like you kind of forget the pain of childbirth. That way
I've
you
always
can like
heard.
you like want to have children again
Yeah, I
because
mean,
otherwise you would be like, oh no, never again kind of thing.
yeah,
It was kind of
obviously I don't know that firsthand, but yeah, I've always heard that as a thing.
okay. Well, when I first started Cave of Necrogon, I thought maybe it was that for me. I was like, okay, this isn't. I was like, this is worse than I remember.
Right.
Maybe it was that whole like pain of childbirth thing, whereas like it used like it's always been this bad, but I just
Hmm.
didn't remember it being this bad. And but it was bad. And I think it was just I was tired. I'd been playing it
Uh,
for a long time that day, and this was at this point that was when I was still I was reviewing it, for work, and
hmm.
the game wasn't out yet, so I was like working on a deadline to a certain extent with getting through the story.
Yep.
So it was like, I was trying to make headway in it, and it's late at night, and President Austin just wanted to go to sleep,
Right.
and I couldn't because I had to get through the Cave of Necrogon.
So one thing that we haven't actually talked about in any of the DQ3 stuff, I don't believe, is, and you kind of reminded me of it when you said that you went back and made sure that you saved at the end and got done, is that this game, one of the quality of life features in this that I really, really appreciate is an autosave after each battle. I can't
It's nice.
remember
Yeah.
if we've talked about that before, but it's so nice to know that especially on Switch, if something happens and I need to put it down for a minute or put it to sleep, that I'm not going to lose the progress because I forgot to return to a church and save it in a town, that the autosave will automatically save it, but it's when you leave any battle, so it's not just like going in or out of a town or a cave or anything like that. And you talking about Necrogon, where it's you would still maintain your progress through there if it did get frustrating and you were like, I'm done right now, and there's no way to lose the progress. I mean, there's a way to lose the progress you made, obviously, but you're not going to, based on not being able to return and save. So that's
Mhm.
one of the quality of life things that I really appreciate about this one, and that I really can't remember if you and I talked about it personally, like just between us, or if we talked about it in an earlier episode or anything. But I know that's
Yeah.
been one of the saving graces for me is in any kind of RPG when I'm playing it on the Switch, because I really do tend to do it in really short chunks
Mhm.
and hope that I can save it, because I've lost quite a bit of progress before in some games because the Switch died, the 3DS battery died, I didn't know it, something like that. So having it saved to the cart on
You lost your
automatic.
Switch for 4 weeks.
Shut up.
Like, yeah, things happen.
I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, it's wherever it is, it's dead right now. Like it has a dead battery. And but my game was saved exactly where I ended it without having to worry that I lost, 2 hours beforehand or anything like that. I wasn't in the Cave of Necrogon for sure, where it would matter that much. But yeah, it's that kind of thing where when you lose your Switch and then you find it a couple of months later, it's like, oh yeah, I'm picking up from the actual step I left off here.
Yeah.
So Necrogon would be a little bit better than some of the DQ3 remakes.
Yeah, and
Mobile was probably like that too, with the quick saves that you could do.
it also auto saves when you go into like a new map. So like as
Mm-hmm.
you go through the different levels of Cave of Necrogon, every time you walk through,
Mm-hmm.
it auto saves. So that is helpful because it means you don't have to take it all in one bout, unless you're like me, and I was just like, nope, gonna get through it. And it's just one of those things where it's like it's kind of like Cave of Renderak, Cave of Roan, whatever you want to call it in
That's
DQ2,
what I was thinking
where
too.
where it's like it's definitely a feels like a spiritual successor to that in DQ3. It was kind of like I feel like probably the devs were like, hey, everybody hated, this part is everybody kind of hates Cave of Renderak. And it's not that bad.
Right.
It's not that rough, but it does feel like a similar situation where you have to get through it to make it out into the valley on the
Yeah.
other side. And so um but it's and part of that too, like I said, was just, I was tired when I got to it the first time, and it was late at night. It was after I'd been, working all day and then playing
Right.
it and stuff like that. And
And this is in the HD-2D remake of it here. This isn't like when you were like playing them when Naomi was a baby and
oh no,
like
no,
trying to. This is the
I'm
HD
talking about
remake.
I'm
Okay.
talking about the actual HD-2D
Yeah.
remake. Yeah. And I try to like limit it too because I get like if I play I'm like a child. If I play video games too close to bedtime, it keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
And so I, so
Which
like I tend to like turn off I'm like no more video games. It's 8:30. I need to rest my brain for the next 3 hours first.
yeah.
Um
And I mean, you were we've been talking a couple of weeks ago that resting your brain and being able to get your sleep schedule and your brain to shut down, has that helped any with the magic mind stuff that you've been taking as you've been drinking purple drink? It's not really purple drink, that's different, that is an
it
actual thing, but your purple
it is it is
sleep
purple.
shots.
Yeah, and I didn't have it back then. I might have slept better if I had. Yeah, it's Magic Mind Sleep. Yeah, it's been helping a lot. This is been taking it for like 10 days now,
Mm,
I think, and can definitely feel like I'm sleeping better through the night,
yeah.
and kind of helps me wind down a little bit. I'm like a dog, I get the zoomies
Yes.
before bed. I'm like, I gotta run. And so this kind of prevents me from needing the zoomies
Yeah.
before bed. And yeah, I'm on like day 10, I think,
Yeah.
of it, so I can kind of feel like the full effects of it. And like the chamomile and lavender, and like, it's got kava in it, which I
Lavender.
think is probably a part of it too, is the kava. If anybody has gone to a kava bar or anything before,
Mm,
and so like yeah, it's been really nice. It's Magic Mind Sleep. We still have a code with it being January. You can actually go to magicmind.com/DragonJan. Again, just picture Jan from the Brady Bunch in a dragon costume. Easy to remember, Dragon
sure.
Jan. And you get 45% off
Hmm.
the bundle of Magic Mind Sleep and the regular Magic Mind, which I also love too. So check that out. Get 45% off. Sleep better, feel better during the day,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
yeah.
this is the kind of thing I wish I'd had back when I was playing World of Warcraft. And I know that Jennifer wishes that I'd had it back then. Like I had to really struggle about staying up late and getting very little sleep. And it would really mess with my sleep schedule, but like not sleep schedule, sleep quality.
Mhm.
And I would play, and then I would go to bed, and the way that it aligned my brain with her sleep schedule is I was always saying really weird things and interacting with her in a really specific, like odd way. And it took a lot of work and discipline for World of Warcraft as well to get away from it. But it took a lot of work to actually calm down, get the video game away, get my brain to stop interacting with my sleep a certain way where I didn't wake her up yelling about there's a giant green, red and yellow bug and like asking her if she's giving off steam or something and patting her down, like really weird stuff. Like that would have been something I definitely would have been trying then, because it took a while to figure out that it was World of Warcraft, and playing a game right up until bed late at night.
Hmm.
I would have totally taken drunk the Magic Mind sleep and given it a shot, because I was driving her crazy
Yeah.
with these like weird middle of the night crazies.
And to be fair, like I still like try to limit that, like
Yeah, of course.
even now, where I try to actively not play video games past a certain point.
Hmm.
So, so I'm sure that kind of altered my Cave of Necrogon
Right.
stuff
Good.
anyway. Um, and then of course, moving on from the orbs now,
Yeah.
with this kind of thing, it's like the the next part of the game, of course, is going where you're going to uh go and you think you're going to go fight the final boss. You
Uh
have
huh.
the orbs. You go and get the Godbird, which I don't know if I've said this on here. They made it way too
You
slow
did.
in the
I don't.
game.
I
It
don't
is
remember if
like
you've told
painfully
me or
slow.
the. I don't know if you told me or the podcast this, but yeah, the painfully slow. Like, there's no reason it should be that like trudging to try to fly around.
It's the like DQ3 remake, this
Mm.
HD-2D remake is pretty much a perfect game. I mean, I love it. It's the one sticking point really. At the end of the day, the one thing that really I just cannot get over is the Godbird being so slow. Ramia, it's just like it's kind of like cool. I could be walking this fast if they would just put me up in the clouds. Like
Hmm.
this is the speed I would be going. And it's very it's very irritating. I don't know. Um, Whenever they were testing the game, I'm not sure why nobody was like, "Hey, maybe we should make the bird a little faster." But somebody should have spoken up, and I'm hoping that like I mean I've not tested it out. I've not put the speeds side by
Yeah.
side, but like the I was fully expecting, you walk and then you get the ship, and the ship goes faster than you're
Hmm.
walking, and then you expect to get the flying mount that most
Yep.
RPGs have, and then you get to like zoom around the overworld, and that's like a kind of a rite of passage when you get to a certain point in any RPG.
And it
You
gets
can
super
like
fun
fire
to
up.
be able to circumnavigate the map and just like zip around. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get Ramia in this game, and you're just like this, and then you like see your friends down there on the ground and they're like woo and just running all around, and this is just and you're just slowly like passing over them, and it's just like I wish they had sped that part up, because it it really did, like, because at that point too I was trying to like clean up a little bit of the monsters and stuff like that before I
Yeah.
fell through the hole in the world and went, to fight the true final boss, and wind up in a left guard and
Yep.
all that stuff. And so, and then when I would go back to that world, like in post game, I would get frustrated too because it just
Mm.
felt so much slower.
Right.
And I guess there's an upside to it. Like you don't have encounters when you're flying the
Yeah.
way you do on a pirate ship.
Which isn't going
And
to get as nearly as frustrating.
it's always been on top of the Godbird being slow. Uh, the other thing that is kind of frustrating is you get this, right? You get Ramia, and then it's like you go to Baramos's lair, you fight him, and then it's kind of like surprise. There's the big,
Mm.
kind of one of the like biggest surprises,
Yeah.
ever. And it's like, oh, you didn't really beat the game, and then you fell through the hole and you ended up in a left guard, and it was like, whoa, the surprises just keep
Uh-huh.
on coming. But then when you fall through that hole, you're back to walking or
Hmm.
riding in a ship and having encounters. And so I've always felt, and it's this way in the remake too, but I've always felt kind of like the balance was off there, because it's like as soon as you get this cool, you spent all this time getting those
Yeah.
orbs so that you could get the bird, and then you get the bird, and don't really get much time with it, especially in the original, because there weren't like
Hmm.
monsters to recruit and stuff like that. So if you're just playing through the story, it's like, yay, I got a bird, and then oh, I don't have a bird anymore,
Yeah,
and you're just done. And that's always been even the like original DQ3 and like any version of it, that's always been kind of a lackluster thing for me, is I
yeah,
feel like that it's not um they just don't give you time to really enjoy it. You work
yeah.
so hard for it and then you get it for 5 minutes and then it's like I mean I mean literally if you're just worried about the
Mm.
story, it's like you get Ramia, you fly
To the
and
location,
yeah, you
and
fly over there and it's like, well, see you bird.
it's so weird when games take things away from you that you've earned and remove that power. Like I've had a lot of discussions with people in like the RPG, the TTRPG, the tabletop stuff on design on games becoming unfun for players whenever you do something that penalizes them, like not even taking levels away or anything, but like armor breaking, like even in Zelda with the weapons breaking in Breath of the Wild, things like that,
Mhm.
where it's so frustrating that it puts players off. That I don't understand why it's so common with
Yeah.
different games like this, where it's like, oh, I can finally fly, and then 20 minutes later, if you don't do it right, you're back to walking around the map without having the ability to go where you want. And once you've opened up the world, it gets really frustrating
Yeah.
in any game.
And like yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like even if there's different games handle it a different way. Like
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy X, for instance, like I actually don't mind because there's no real world map in that game.
Yeah,
Like I actually like it fine where it's kind of like you just go to a menu and you like choose the location
yeah,
and like the airship goes there. You don't have to actually control it. Like that can work fine for me. There's actually I replayed Legend of Dragoon. I think I've
mm-hmm.
talked about that on here. Um, and finished it up last weekend maybe.
Okay.
Anyway, and it's a really easy platinum. You basically just have to play through the story and do like three optional bosses. And it's optional bosses that I typically did anyway. But it had been a while since I was replaying it, I was like, I'll go and try to do the other optional bosses that I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
done before too. Well, I was kind of confused because I was like, man, am I gonna have to like walk all that way? Like, how does this work?
Yeah,
And apparently, when I was playing this as a kid, or even I replayed it as an adult, um, since we've been living down in Florida, but it's been a while, so probably like 6, 7 years ago.
okay.
Um, I replayed it too, and it never registered to me that the giant manta ray thing, Kulon, that
Yeah.
shows up that's like, I'll be your wings. That whenever you get that in Xenobatos, and you can just go talk to him, and you can actually use him to fly around and go to
Okay.
he won't take you to every point, but he takes you to like major points on the map. And yeah, of all the times I've played Legend of Dragoon, whenever I was like
Hmm.
playing it this time, I was like, wow, there's like a flying mount that you just fly around on this
Wow.
manta ray thing. And I knew he's in the game because he shows up and he just talks to you for a second. And then very, very late, I guess spoiler for Legend of Dragoon, but after you get done with the stuff in Mayfield, the party like jumps on him and there's like a cinematic of them riding him, up to the moon and
Yeah.
everything. And so and also, let's just appreciate the JRPG goodness of riding a giant manta ray up to the moon. Like, let's just
Yeah.
pause and just appreciate that. But, but yeah, I didn't. There's a whole flying mount that I just now discovered, despite it being in this game that I've played multiple times.
It's that is astonishing that you have never noticed that you could fly on it on your own.
Not to my
Uh,
knowledge, yeah. Unless, I mean, I don't remember everything from when I was
yeah.
a kid first playing the game, but yeah, I had no
Huh.
recollection of it. I mean, I guess it's possible that I just missed it whenever I replayed it like 6 or 7 years ago,
Yeah.
um, but I don't think so. I think I just never knew it was
So
a thing.
with the remake that you played of it, like this is not on Dragon Quest. This is something I'm curious about Legend of Dragoon.
Oh,
Does it have a speed up feature like so many of the other RPGs does? Because I tried to
um,
play the original PS1 version on the PSP or the Vita version of it that I downloaded, and I couldn't stand it because the combat was so slow. If they were possible to speed up the game, that's something that really makes me want to play it because I know how many people love it, but I could not stand the speed of the combat in the
It's
original.
no, the speed hasn't changed, but it's because of the additions. You have to hit your additions to really like
Oh,
increase damage output. And I noticed it when I first started playing it. I noticed it because your addition starting out, there's like one, you
mm-hmm.
know. But then like later in the game, by the end of the game, like my party, sorry to be talking about Legend of Dragoon so much, but my party was like Rose, Albert, and Dart. Albert's always been my favorite character, like him and Lavitz with the spear. Just always liked spears. I don't know. But anyway, they're really fast. And so it's like by the time you get there, it's like Albert's got like seven. There's like seven presses you have to do. Rose
uh,
has like 7 or 8. Dart's got 7 or 8. And it's like you don't even notice it because the battle time is having to time it with the additions. And so it,
okay.
it really helps with that. The only thing that's been added since they have this kind of updated version
Mm-hmm.
is they upscaled the graphics slightly.
Yeah.
Um, when you're playing it, but there is an option to rewind, and
Oh,
also to just save it and load it whenever you want.
oh, that's nice. That
So that was nice, especially whenever I was beating the final boss, Melbu. It's a long boss fight. It has like 42,000 HP, which is a lot for that game. Takes a while, but it's because there's not like three different final bosses. It's just
right.
there's this one, and anyway, it has a lot of HP. And we had somebody come to our house like in the middle of it that like coming to hang out with us, and so I like hit pause, saved in just the middle of the boss fight, and was able to turn it off and then go back to it later on. So that was cool.
Yeah.
It does have some nice features, but speed up is not one of them. And
Uh,
I,
But
I
I
don't know if it would,
understand why.
yeah, I don't think it would work with the additions unless there are options and these were in the original game too, where you could turn off the animations for turning into a Dragoon every time
Okay.
that can cut down on it. But yeah, anyway,
Yeah,
DQ3 wins.
that's yeah, cool. I was been really curious about that because I bought it when it came out, I think, or it got on sale or something like that. And when I haven't played that one specifically because I went back to the original and was just curious. But yeah, that's good to know about the combat speeding up because of how you interact with it. But yeah, so DQ3.
Yeah, so DQ3. Um, once you fall through, so we're gonna talk. Probably gonna run out of time, so we'll talk about post game and stuff like that
Yep.
later on. But yeah, so once you fall through, you wind up in a left guard again.
Mhm.
Goodbye. I think later translations call it the Everbird instead of the Godbird, but
Uh,
Ramia, Lamia, it's like whatever translation you're playing. In this version, it's Ramia. Um, I kept saying Godbird, and then I'm like, I don't think that's what they called
that's
it
not what they
in
called it.
in
Yeah.
DQ3 remake. But anyway, um, you can, or maybe it's the Everbird and now it's the Godbird. I don't know. Anyway, it's called a bunch of different things. But you say goodbye to that, and then you have to go through, and you essentially just, like retraverse through a
Yeah.
left guard, which is, where you were in the first two DQ games,
Right.
and can go and revisit stuff. I spent a lot more time there this time than I ever have because of the monsters, trying to look for
Yeah.
monsters. Also going back, I was using the thief ability. What is it called that lets you hunt for the mini metals? Tells you about the how many mini metals are
Not
around. I can't
treasure
remember
hunter, is it?
I don't think so. I can't remember the name of the move. Um,
I don't know.
mm,
I can't remember.
And it's one of those. It's like with any Dragon Quest ability, it probably
And
has like three different names for it because of
yeah,
various like
and I never
localizations.
use thieves really, so and I never really just go out of my way to hunt mini metals, so it's not something that's just off the top of my head.
You should use thieves in DQ3
Yeah, I am.
because of the ability to like find mini metals, avoid traps,
Yeah,
like stay balanced. I mean, there's like thieves learn some really good moves that are
yeah.
very helpful for
I've replaced
exploration.
my monster wrangler actually with a thief after having the suggestion from a listener.
I don't know.
So
I don't know that I would still have to me Monster Wrangler is the most like OP class in this game. So I
really,
would yeah, like I would probably trade out something else if it were me. But yeah, I because I was going through and then
right?
also doing stuff like I mentioned in a previous episode about how Platy and I were like trying so hard to
Hmm.
find the axe in the game, or the
Yep.
hammer rather. And we had the clue where it was like a forest, with trees.
Yeah.
And I was like, because of the way the riddle is, you're like, okay, is it in like the old,
Oh.
I think Cole is the town in the left guard that the person is in, and you're like, should I go back to the old world
Mhm.
map and look for it there, or is it like here now?
Yeah.
And so like I went and like I thought I'd found it, because you go
Yeah.
there and it's whatever his name is, like log cabin, but it's a cabin surrounded by trees, and I was like, this fits it. And I saw something shiny and I was like, yeah. It ended up being like the Lyre of Ire, which I totally forgot about even like trying to collect
Yeah.
in DQ3. And so whenever I got found that in the basement, I was like, oh, that's not the
Mhm.
hammer. And but I spent a lot more time with it, because I think anytime I ever have played DQ3, it's like by the time you get to a left guard, I know we're almost out of time, but by the time you get to a left guard, it's like it's cool. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but at the same time, it's like the first time, it's kind of like I was prepared to be at the end of this game,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I
and,
mean,
and now there's all this other stuff, and so like and then in later playthroughs, I always tended to like, okay, go to A to B to C to D. Like
right.
I'm gonna do everything to get to Zoma's castle and then take down Zoma. I've got like tunnel vision. I know
Yeah.
what my objective is, and I'm ready to get there now. But because of the kind of side content that
Hmm.
this game has, I spent a whole lot more time in a left guard in DQ3 Remake than I ever have. And part of it was because of actual gameplay, like monster
Yeah.
recruiting. Part of it was my own stupidity for, not being able to find the hammer fast enough,
Yeah.
and some of the stuff to like upgrade armor and weapons that you can do late in the
Yep.
game. Um, but yeah, I mean, I did enjoy being able to do that a little bit more this time around. I know we're almost out of time, so we'll do probably a final episode, I guess, next week, talking
Yep.
about final boss fight, uh, final thoughts on like post game and
Yep.
post game and all that good stuff.
Super
Um,
bosses, all of that good stuff.
yeah. So thank you guys for listening to this week's episode. If you want to chat with us, you can do that on Spotify as a comment.
Hmm.
You can chat with us over on X or Blue Sky, at Dragon Quest FM, or at DragonQuest.fm if you're over on Blue
On
Sky,
Blue
because
Sky,
that's
yeah,
the
we've
URL. You can also, if you're watching this, you can leave a comment on YouTube, and we're trying to read and respond to those as we get notifications on it. And you could also just go watch this video if you want, and that is at youtube.com/@DQFM. And you could also, hit the subscribe button while you're over there and do
that's
us
true.
that solid. And remember, if you want to get 45% off of Magic Mind, you can do that by visiting magicmind.com/dragonjan. And then last but not least, I'm also on Blue Sky over at Dragon Quaston, and then with like the dot Blue Sky social whatever
Yep.
junk following it, but you'll find me.
And these days I'm only on Blue Sky. You can find me at bjk.com, bjkgames.com over there. And we're also on Patreon if you'd like to support the podcast at patreon.com/DragonQuestFM. Uh,
Thanks
that's it
everybody.
for us.
Yeah, thanks y'all, and we'll see you next week.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.